Gene Hackman, the Oscar winning actor, and his wife Betsy were found dead.
20 years ago, battling health issues, he and wife Betsy moved to New Mexico for a more private and peaceful life.
When a Hollywood legend is found dead under mysterious circumstances, the world watches. But now, the daughter of Gene Hackman, the man who captured hearts in The French Connection and Unforgiven, is speaking out for the first time. What she says will change everything we thought we knew about his final days and about the life he kept hidden. You won't believe what she reveals next. Gene Hackman wasn't just an actor, he was an icon. With a career spanning over 5 decades, his name became synonymous with gritty, authentic performances that captivated audiences worldwide. From The French Connection to Unforgiven, his legacy in Hollywood is undeniable. But behind the fame, the Oscar wins, and the adoration of millions, there was a man who lived quietly, choosing a life far removed from the public eye. That all changed in February 2025, when the news broke that Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. At first glance, it seemed like another sad passing, a quiet end for a legendary actor. But as investigators began piecing together the details, it became clear that this was no ordinary death. What followed would leave the world asking questions no one expected. The couple, found in a home they had so carefully crafted as a sanctuary, were discovered under circumstances that didn't add up. What happened in those final days? What was hidden behind closed doors, away from the glare of Hollywood's spotlight? On the morning of February 26, 2025, a maintenance worker entered the Hackmans' home in Santa Fe after failing to hear from them for several days. What he discovered would send shockwaves through the community and beyond. Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy, were found deceased in their residence. But something was off. While there were no signs of forced entry or external trauma on their bodies, the condition of the remains raised alarming questions. Betsy had been dead for several days before being discovered. Her body showed signs of significant decomposition, a stark contradiction to the idea of a sudden, peaceful passing. Gene, found shortly after her, was seemingly in good condition. But how could he have passed away after Betsy, in such a secluded environment with no clear signs of what had occurred?
Authorities initially considered natural causes, but as the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office began their investigation, it became clear that the timeline was all wrong. With no obvious answers, what could have happened in this quiet, peaceful home to take 2 lives? What could possibly explain such a troubling timeline, and why had nobody checked on the Hackmans for so long? As the investigation deepens, it raises even more unsettling questions. The Santa Fe community was shaken, and the investigation quickly became a national story. The autopsy results, expected to offer some clarity, only left more room for speculation. There were no external signs of foul play or violence, making the cause of death even more puzzling. Leslie Hackman, Gene's daughter, had spoken to her father just days before the discovery. She described him as active, sharp, and healthy. At 95, Gene Hackman was more spry than most people half his age. Regular yoga, Pilates, and an active lifestyle kept him in great health, something Leslie was quick to point out when speaking to the press. If Gene had been in such good condition, how could he suddenly succumb to death after his wife? And why did Betsy die earlier? The discrepancy in their deaths and the strange delay in their discovery turned the investigation into a complex puzzle. Authorities are now looking into every possible angle, including the couple's living conditions. Could an environmental factor, something as simple as a gas leak or another hidden hazard, have contributed to their deaths? Or was there something darker at play? With the toxicology reports pending, the world waits anxiously for answers. The investigation is far from over. Could an unexpected environmental factor explain the deaths, or is there something more insidious lurking behind this tragedy? For Leslie Hackman, the news was devastating, and the circumstances even harder to understand. Speaking to reporters, she struggled to reconcile the man she knew with the shocking events unfolding. Gene Hackman wasn't just a famous actor, he was a beloved father who had maintained a healthy and active lifestyle well into his later years. His death didn't make sense to her or anyone who knew him. Leslie spoke with pride about her father's vitality, recalling how he'd kept in great shape despite his age. He still had that sharp wit, that commanding presence, she said, her voice trembling. Dad was as sharp as ever. He didn't show any signs of slowing down. She went on to explain how his health had been an important part of his life, not just for his well-being, but for his marriage to Betsy. Betsy was a rock for him, Leslie reflected. She kept him going, kept him healthy. Without her, he wouldn't have been as strong as he was. Betsy had been more than just a wife. She was Gene's partner in every sense of the word. From the moment they met, their bond was something that defied Hollywood standards. Their 30-year marriage was a model of commitment, built on trust, mutual respect, and love. Leslie recalled how over the years, Betsy had not only supported Gene's career, but also kept him grounded and healthy in ways that few could have. But what happened to Betsy? Why did she die days before Gene? Was there something that went wrong in their home? Something that even Leslie doesn't know? Betsy Arakawa wasn't just Gene Hackman's wife. She was his anchor, his protector, and the woman who helped him lead a life that many would envy, a life of authenticity, away from the relentless pursuit of fame. Betsy, a highly accomplished classical pianist, had already forged her own career before meeting Gene, but it was her partnership with him that would define the final chapter of both their lives. When Gene decided to retire from Hollywood in 2004, it wasn't just a professional decision, it was a deeply personal one. The pressures of stardom had taken their toll, and Gene wanted to step away from the limelight. But it was Betsy who played a crucial role in that decision. She didn't just support him, she encouraged him to live a more authentic life, one that didn't require sacrificing his privacy for the sake of fame. Those who knew the couple described their relationship as one of true balance. Betsy's calm, reserved nature complemented Gene's more intense public personality. She was, in every sense of the word, his partner in the truest sense of the word. It wasn't just the glitz and glamour that held them together. It was their deep, quiet love for each other, which had grown over the course of 3 decades. Their life in Santa Fe, away from the Hollywood glimmer, was a choice they made together. They had both built something that transcended the superficiality of the film industry. For Gene, Santa Fe was a place where he could be himself, without the weight of celebrity looming over him. But Betsy was instrumental in creating that sanctuary, where the couple could thrive in peace. Yet with her death preceding Gene's, the question now becomes, was this peaceful existence disrupted by something beyond their control? Did the loss of his partner, his confidant, and the person who had been his constant for over 30 years lead to his own demise? And if so, was it a natural part of life, or was there something darker at play within their quiet home? Was Betsy's death a catalyst for Gene's? Or was there something about their environment, their home, that could explain both tragedies?
Santa Fe, New Mexico was not just a place of residence for Gene and Betsy. It was a place of refuge. After years of fame and fortune, the Hackmans had chosen to live in a small town that valued authenticity over celebrity. In this peaceful, quiet corner of the world, they became beloved members of the community, contributing to local causes, supporting educational initiatives, and championing the arts. Their home became a sanctuary, not only for them, but for their neighbors and friends. When news of their deaths spread, the community was in shock. Gene and Betsy were more than just celebrities. They were part of the fabric of Santa Fe. The town rallied together to mourn their loss, with the memorial spontaneously forming near their home. Locals left flowers, cards, and other tributes, honoring a couple who had chosen to live humbly despite their fame. The Hackmans' involvement in the arts and education left an indelible mark on Santa Fe. They were not just Hollywood residents. They were neighbors, friends, and patrons of the community. The outpouring of grief was palpable, but it also left behind an unsettling question. What had happened in their sanctuary that led to such a tragic and mysterious end? The community mourns the loss of a beloved couple, but will they ever get the answers they deserve? Was there something hidden from even the people closest to them? Gene Hackman's legacy in Hollywood is legendary, but it is the way he lived his life that left a lasting impression on many who knew him. Hackman was never one to seek the spotlight. Unlike many of his peers who thrived on the chaos and attention that fame brought, Hackman sought a more genuine, quieter existence.
Francis Ford Coppola, who directed Hackman in the iconic The Conversation, reflected on Hackman's authenticity. Gene was not just one of our greatest actors, Coppola said. He was one of our most authentic human beings. Hollywood had witnessed the highs and lows of celebrity, but Hackman, despite being one of the greatest actors of his time, had always stayed true to his roots. He had nothing to prove to the world. His legacy was already secured through his unforgettable performances. But his choice to step away from Hollywood was an act that resonated deeply with many. Hackman didn't need the glitz of the red carpet. Instead, he found joy in pursuing passions like woodworking, painting, and writing. His life after Hollywood seemed more fulfilling, more grounded. An example of a man who had everything but chose simplicity over fame. Yet, now that his life has ended under such mysterious circumstances, many are left wondering, was there more to his departure from Hollywood than just a desire for peace? Did his later years hold secrets that he carried with him into his final days? What part of Hackman's post-Hollywood life will be uncovered next, and what, if anything, was he hiding from the public eye? The investigation into Gene and Betsy Hackman's deaths is still in its early stages, but it's clear that this case is far from ordinary. The authorities have been careful not to speculate, but the discrepancies in the timeline remain troubling. Leslie Hackman's testimony paints a picture of a healthy, vibrant father who was doing well just days before his death. Yet his sudden demise and the conditions under which it occurred raises many more questions than answers. Toxicology reports and further examination of the couple's home are still pending, but authorities are already considering every possibility. Was it a tragic coincidence, the natural aging process catching up to a beloved couple? Or is there something more to this story? An environmental factor, a hidden danger, or perhaps even something darker behind the scenes? As the investigation progresses, the Hackman family has asked for privacy, but the public's thirst for answers remains unquenched. What they do know is that Gene Hackman's death is as mysterious as his life was extraordinary. And in the silence of Santa Fe, the truth is slowly being pieced together, one detail at a time. With so many questions still unanswered, will the truth ever be uncovered? Or will this tragic mystery remain unsolved?
Gene Hackman's death, coupled with the mysterious circumstances surrounding his wife Betsy's passing, has left the world in a state of deep uncertainty. While Hollywood will forever remember Hackman for his unforgettable roles in films like The French Connection and Unforgiven, it is the quiet life he chose to live in Santa Fe that many will now reflect on with renewed significance. His legacy, however, is more than just his work on screen. It's the life he led after Hollywood, focused on authenticity, family, and the simple joys of living far from the spotlight. His relationship with Betsy, grounded in love and mutual respect, stands as a reminder that even in the glare of fame, genuine connections can thrive. They had built something rare and real, a life that was the antithesis of the Hollywood machine. Yet now, with their deaths shrouded in mystery, many are left to wonder, what was the truth behind the final chapter of their lives? Was it simply the natural course of time catching up with them? Or was there something more at play, something yet to be uncovered in the quiet shadows of their home? As the investigation continues, Gene and Betsy Hackman's deaths serve as a stark reminder that even the most public figures can hide the most private truths. And until the full story comes to light, the world will be left with more questions than answers. Will the investigation uncover the truth, or will this tragic story remain a mystery? Only time will tell. But for now, the Hackman family's silence only deepens the enigma surrounding their final days.